You guys say, oh, pass them back. We'll wait. Okay, so today's date, 1/24/18, right? Common Core Standards. So we're talking about parabolas, but another word for parabolas is quadratics. I don't know if you remember this thing called the quadratic formula. You guys remember a thing called the quadratic formula? Well, the quadratic formula comes from parabolas. So our Common Core Standard is it's going to be quadratics. And finding zeros from factoring. Okay, quadratics. So quadratics basically are parabolas. We know parabolas are those loopy shaped thingies, right? Smiley faces or frowny faces, right? Zeros are going to be basically x-intercepts, or a zero is any value that makes a quadratic equal to 0. Okay, so here it is. I'm going to highlight that. So 0 is any value that makes a quadratic equal to 0. Also, it's the x-intercepts. They're also called roots. So you're going to hear both roots and zeros. We'll talk about roots more specifically when we talk about imaginary. Okay, so for today, don't worry about roots. If you see the word roots, think zeros. Okay, when you see roots or zeros, think set y equal to 0, and solve. Okay, so here's what we're going to do today. Throughout all our lesson, we're going to do these two steps. All the way through the lesson today, we're going to set y equal to 0. We're going to solve. The way we're going to solve is probably to factor first. Okay. All right, let's do example 1. Okay, slide it up. So example 1 says find the zeros. So set y equal to 0. Okay, we're going to do this throughout all the problems. So we set that equal to 0. We're going to go 0 equals x squared plus 2x minus 3. Okay, first step, set y equal to 0. Okay, so then it says solve, but you can't really solve for x squared when you got an x squared and a 2x and a 3. You can't solve when it's like this, but what we can do is we can factor, right? Okay, so we factor. Okay. And we know how to factor this. We've been practicing. We know x and x, right? Because the x and x makes the x squared, right? Multiples of 3, like 3 and 1, right? 3 and 1, multiples of 3, 3 and 1. But let's make it a positive 3 and a negative 1 so that they will combine to make the positive 2, right? So x and x makes x squared, negative 3, and I get my negative 1x, positive 3x, which makes positive 2. Okay, so I've factored it, but I haven't solved it. So here's something I always put down here. Okay, always two answers. Always two answers. Okay, so how are we going to get two answers? It's easy. We've got two little mini equations. Our answers are looking right at us. Okay. We're going to set these two little mini equations equal to 0 and solve. Okay, we're going to get two answers easily. We're going to say, okay, well, one answer comes from this. Comes from 0 equals x plus 3. And the other answer comes from 0 equals x minus 1. Okay, so what do? We set y equal to 0. Boom. We factored. Boom. We set them equal to get our mini equations, and we solve. Minus 3, minus 3. My first 0 is negative 3. Plus 1, my second 0 is 1. Okay, those are my zeros. Okay, now, so I set my little equation. Minus 3, I got one answer. I went plus 1, I got my other answer. Okay, now these are zeros, right? So that by the definition of 0, it should be anything that makes it 0. Okay, any value that makes the quadratic equal to 0 is going to be a 0. So I'm going to test it. We'll only test our equations once, and that's right now. Most of the time we'll take our answers and move on, okay? I will not make you do this step just this one time. So how do you test them? You take your negative 3. You plug it in. It should make the answer 0. So if I take y equals negative 3 squared plus 2 times negative 3 minus 3, I better get an answer of 0. And I will. Okay, I will. So I get a positive 9 minus 6 minus 3. Sure enough, that is 0. So negative 3 gave me an answer of 0. Negative 3 gave me an answer of 0. So negative 3 is a 0. Okay. 1. 1 should be a 0, so let's test it. Okay, so if I plug 1 in to my equation, I go y equals my 1 squared plus my 2 times my 1 minus 3, right? 1 plus 2 minus 3, sure enough, that equals 0, okay? So, 1, the answer 1, made 0, so 1 is a 0. So I found my two zeros, -3 and 1. Two answers always, okay? And I got two answers, didn't I, okay? Example 2. Let's do the same thing, all right? So example 2, let's find the zeros. So what's the first thing we should do? What's our little rule say? What's the first thing we're going to do? Okay. Set it equal to 0. So you set it equal to 0, first step, and solve. Well, you can't solve it unless you factor it, right? You can't solve it unless you factor, so let's factor, okay? So I'm going to factor. I'm going to boom, 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 boom. Two sets of parentheses. X and x makes x squared, right? What times what makes 12?
6 and 2.
Let's use a -6, -2. How about both of them? Is it okay if they're both negative? Does that make sense? Why it'd be a -6 and a -2? Because
They have to be negative beta.
yeah, exactly, Jerome. So we know a negative times a negative is a positive. You agree with that? But the only way we're going to get a negative x is like Jerome said, we have a -6 and a -2. They both have to be negative, right? Okay, now, we're not done because we're solving it, right? So we've factored. We got two little mini equations, right? And from our mini equations, we're going to get our answer. So we're going to go 0 equals x minus 6 and 0 equals x minus 2, okay? So we set it equals 0. We factor. From our factoring, we get our little mini equations, right? And we solve. Plus 6, right? One answer is 6. Plus 2, the other 0 is 2. That's it. There's my zeros. My zeros are 6 and 2. Thumbs up so far? Sideways thumbs? Hunter used to give me one of these. But that was Hunter. Sometimes he'd give me these. Every now and then from Hunter I'd get 2 thumbs up, and that was a good day, right? Sometimes he'd give me 2 thumbs down, so, you know, but how are we doing? We okay? We're here? Are we here? We're a little bit like there? Okay. Let's take a look at example 3, okay? So, example 3. Same rules. First thing we're going to do is set it equal to 0. If we want to find the zeros, we set it equal to 0. Okay? If we want to find the zeros, we set it equal to 0, okay? Step 2, we're going to factor. Now this is the factoring we did on our warm-up. Remember how we did our warm-up? Okay. We factored by common factoring. So what's the biggest multiple that they have in common? 3. And what else do they have in common? They have an x. You guys agree? So they both have a multiple of 3, and they both at least have an x in common. So this is what we did yesterday, right? So we pull out the common factor, which is our 3x. What's left over? X plus 4, okay? Okay, we're not done yet because we've got to find out what the values of x are. We're going to find our zeros. So we got our mini equations, right? So let's do our mini equations. So I'm going to have 0 equals 3x and 0 equals x plus 4, right? So if I'm going to solve, Jerome?
Couldn't you do the, I don't know, you call it double parentheses, I guess. Couldn't you do that as well?
You can, but you'd have a 0 in there anyway.
Yeah, I figured I was like 0,
Yep.
0, 12.
Yep, nice job. Yeah, and you'll get the same answers, believe it or not. We will. Go ahead and finish your way, Jerome, and let's see if we get the same answer, okay? So how am I going to solve for x here? We just divide, right? Divide by 3, and 0 divided by 3 is 0, right? So one answer is 0. So 0 is a 0. Minus 4, we get -4, okay? You guys are going to start skipping steps, I'm sure, right? I mean, I would have skipped, gone straight to -4 here, agree, right? I would have skipped, gone straight to 2 here and 6 here, right? You'll start skipping steps, won't you? But me, I'm the teacher, so I show every step, okay? All right, turn the page, are we good? I knew you would.
4 and 0.
Yep, perfect. Okay, and it works both ways, doesn't it, Jerome?
Yeah.
Okay, how about example 4? Okay, if we want to find the roots, which is the same thing as zeros, same thing for right now. Okay, for right now, roots and zeros mean the same thing. For now, until we get to next week and start talking about imaginary numbers. Okay. All right. So first step. What was the first step on finding these? What was the very first step? 0 equals x squared minus 9. Wyatt, you're going to factor this for everybody since you already did this one. Remember how you did this one? Are we going to do this one?
X plus 3
Yep.
times x minus 3.
Perfect. You guys agree with that? I do. Okay, and so can we skip a step? Do you guys mind if we skip a step? X will equal negative 3, right? Negative 3. And x will equal positive 3, right? Because you plus 3 plus 3. Did that bother you too badly if I skip that step? All right. Example 5. Am I going too fast? Thumbs up, okay? Okay, example 5. Example 5 is different. You see, all of these had all the x's, so I'm going to do this. I'm going to bring the 40, I'm going to put it right there. I'm going to subtract the 40 and put it there because I want to have 0 equals 8x squared minus 40x plus 50, okay? This one's a little bit harder, okay? But when I factor, I like to have an x squared, x number. When I factor, I like to have x squared, x and a number. It's hard to factor if it's out of order, okay? So it's in order. Now, another thing I see, these are big numbers. Aren't these big numbers? So I'm just going to, right off the bat, divide everything by 2. Because it's going to reduce it. You okay with that? I notice that I can divide by 2, divide by 2, divide by 2, and then I get numbers like this. 4x squared minus 20x plus 25. Okay? Okay, this is one of those hard factoring, but I think we can do it. I do. Okay, I'm going to factor, okay, right? And the only way I'm going to make a 4x squared, 2x, 2x. You okay with that? 4 and 1 will also work. Trust me on this one, 2x, 2x, okay? 2x, 2x, right? And I'll make a 25 with a 5 and a 5. You okay with that? 25 with a 5 and a 5. All right, now at this point, you might be really bothered by this because you probably are saying, where's the 20, right? Where's the 20? Okay, so if we check, how do we check where the 20 is? Double smiley, right? Remember? Okay, if the 20 is there, the double smiley should show it. Okay, there's my double smiley, okay? Okay. Negative 10x. See negative 10x? Negative 10x. Negative 10x, negative 10x, negative 20. So it is factored correctly. Now we're not done yet because we got to have our mini equations, right? So let's do our mini equations. So one mini equation is 0 equals 2x minus 5. Oops, sorry. The other mini equation would be the same thing, wouldn't it? Do I really need to write it twice? We get the same answer, right? Wouldn't I get the same answer? Here and here it should give me the same answer, so let me just do it. So plus 5, right? I get a 2, oops, I'm sorry, 5 equals 2x. Divide by 2, divide by 2. 5 divided by 2 is 2.5. Okay? Now I didn't lie. Told you 2 answers, didn't I? So we'd get 2.5 here, and we'd also get 2.5 here. We just get 2 answers out of the same answer twice. So it is always 2 answers, okay?
It's that middle problem, right?
Totally right. That's why I drew that picture. Nice job, Jerome. That's exactly why I drew that picture. Okay? All right. Thumbs up. Sideways, where you at? Okay. Now let's play Jeopardy. I like Jeopardy. You know why I like Jeopardy? First thing Jeopardy says is this. The answer is. The answer is. Well, these are the answers. These are the answers. What's the question? So we want to make the question. We want to make the question. We want to make the question that would get these kind of answers, right? So we want to make the question that gets these. Well, I know the only way I can get an x to equal 2 is if this x equals 2 came from an x minus 2 equals 0, right? Wouldn't this get me a 2 answer? Right? And the only way I can get a negative 1 is if I had an x plus 1 equals 0 would give me an answer of -1, right? Does that make sense? So these two together could have given me a x minus 2 and a x plus 1, right? And so I'd have a y equals that. That would give me a positive 2, and this would give me a -1, right? You guys agree with that? But it's not really in quadratic form yet, but we can do that because we know how to FOIL, right? Let's put it in quadratic form. So y is equal to x squared plus 1x minus 2x minus 2, right? Or y is equal to an x squared minus a 1x minus 2. What did I do? This is the quadratic that would have these two zeros. This is the quadratic that would have these two zeros. That's what I did. Okay, last but not least, okay? Now, before I do anything, listen to this advice. Whenever you do a story problem, don't freak out. Step back and say, what are we studying? Because every single story problem in every single math book always relates to that chapter or that section, right? I mean, you'll flip through story problem, I go, oh, story problems, I hate story problems. Like, wait a minute. What are we talking about? We're talking about quadratics, aren't we? Right? We're talking about finding zeros, right? So let's read the problem. A soccer ball is kicked from the ground and follows a path given by this. So let's just draw a picture. Kick my soccer ball. It's got to be a parabola. You guys agree? It has to be a parabola, okay? So I don't know all the numbers in between it, but I do know this, right? It's going to go and down, right? Got it. I mean, we all know that. So then, first thing, find the highest height in the time. Well, that would be the vertex, right? You guys agree? So there's my vertex. So I want to find that value. Yesterday, we talked about the vertex, and we used that formula, negative b over 2a. That would give us the vertex, right? Today, we've been talking about the zeros, but yesterday we talked about the vertex, okay? So it's not x, but it's t, okay? Time. So I'm going to go, okay, t equals negative b over 2a. Okay, to find the vertex, I've got to use my vertex formula, negative b over 2a, okay? Here's my a, here's my b. So let's take my 32, so we'll go negative 32 over 2 times negative 16. Makes a negative 32 over negative 32, which is a 1. Now, 1 makes sense because that's time, isn't it? I mean, think about it. You kick a soccer ball, 1001, it's its highest height, right? And then it hits. Does that make sense? 1 makes sense to me. So I know the vertex is 1 something. After 1 second, it's its highest height. But how high is that? What's that? How do we find that height? What is that height? How do we find this value here? We plug it in, right? Remember how we plugged it in yesterday? So we're going to go, all right, h of 1, plug it in, equals negative 16 times 1 squared plus 32 times 1. Do the math on the calculator. Push the buttons. No, 16.
What?
Yeah.
But negative 16
No, remember your aunt, yeah, remember your Aunt Sally? 16. So here's what we know. We know the time. The time is at t equals 1 second. I know the time, 1 second. And I know the height is going to be 16 feet, okay? Okay, when does the ball hit the ground? This is a very easy question. We don't need to do math for this one. I will. I'm going to do math, but you don't need math. Okay, come on now. Think it through. When does it hit the ground? How many seconds? Has to be. It takes 1 second to go to here. One goes up, comes down. It's going to be another second to go down here. Do you guys agree with that? So the answer's got to be 2 seconds. Okay, it has to be. Has to be, right? 1 second up, another second down, it hits. Now, let's prove it. This is a 0, isn't it? That's a 0. So let's do the math that we did before, okay? I'm going to prove it's 2. So if it's a 0, we go to our equation, we set it equal to 0. So if we want to find a 0, our first step was to set it equal to 0. Second step was to factor, right? It's to factor. They have a common 16. In fact, they have a common negative 16. So I'm going to take out a negative 16, and I'm going to take out a t, okay? I'm going to common factor out a negative 16 and a t. That would leave me a t minus 2 on the inside. So when I factored out the negative, it changed it to a negative. But if you're confused about that, I think if you multiply back through, it'd be a positive. You guys agree? That'd be a positive if you multiply back through. Okay, mini equations, right? Mini equations. One mini equation says 0 equals negative 16t, and the other equation is 0 equals t minus 2. Divide by negative 16, and you get 0. Add 2, and you get 2. These answers make sense. At 0 seconds, it's on the ground, right? If you don't kick the ball, it's going to be on the ground. Agree? So this answer of 0 right here, where's my 0? Right there. That's that one there. Haven't kicked the ball yet. It's on the ground. Kick the ball, hits it 2 seconds. There's that answer. Okay, so we have got lots of time. So we want to do some work, okay? Page 338. We're not going to be on our phones. We're not going to be goofing off. I'm trying to give you time to get it done in class, right? You're teenagers. You're busy, aren't you? You don't have time to do homework at home, do you? Let's get it done in class.